doing? How you doing?
Oh, I'm good, man. You know what? We nailed that. We nailed that intro. We
That
nailed it.
song, it gets me going. Puts a
I mean,
smile on my face.
maybe for the first time ever, we the perfect timing from
Just
intro into from the music into the hello.
we got to end the year strong here. We've been practicing all year. It was the last one of 2025. I feel like we had to end it right.
Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah, last Training Simplified Live of the year. It's been fun to do. We'll pick it up again next year. Learned a lot, figuring it out. We're currently live on all platforms right now, including LinkedIn, YouTube, even Instagram. We're just live. Just everywhere you can be live. Why not? We're
Why,
there.
why not? We're doing it. Next year, TikTok. We're doing TikTok. I don't know why, but we're just doing it.
I don't know why. I on Instagram though we're all like cut off because it's like, it's like this, right? And
Oh,
we're like this. But hey,
hey,
that's okay. For all the millions of people tuning in on Instagram live right now, we're sorry. We're sorry it's not the right aspect ratio. We apologize.
I think they're going to be okay. I think we're all going to be okay here.
So great.
Oh
Oh,
man. Well, we got a big one here. We're continuing the talk this week all about developing leaders from within. That's kind of the evolution. We spent most of the year talking about hospitality and how do you scale that. Now it's this world of like once those systems are implemented, a lot of the focus is how do you develop leaders from within. Last week we dove really deep just into the concept of like what does it look like? What are the tools? And today we're going to start breaking down more tactically like how, what is the goal? How do you develop it? And the it is 80% of leaders developed from within inside of your brand. That's what we talked about last week. That's the goal, that's the metric, that's the North Star. How do you do that? How do you create a system and an environment where 80% of your leaders can be developed from within?
the 80% club.
The 80% club.
I think it's a bold and worthy metric to try to hit for any restaurant, retail, hospitality brand. Um, to hit that 80% mark of that for that rate of internal promotion, not just as far as like what's best for the business, but kind of what's best for, I guess, the community. I don't know how else to say it. Yeah, a community of people. I know we did a couple months ago we did I did a restaurant spotlight on Denny's, if you remember, and
Yeah.
pointed out that Denny's has been around for over 40 years, even longer than that, maybe like 60 years, 75 years, I don't know, but that basically with the math that they've had 3 million employees over that time,
That's
and like
nuts. That's such a crazy number when you think about it.
right. And there's sort of this like responsibility. There's a weight to it of like, hey, if you are an organization that's responsible for that many people, that many lives that they're entrusting you with like their livelihood, do right by them, right? Give them the best that you can give them. And think about like if an organization that has had 3 million people pass through their doors as employees, what kind of impact that can have on families, on a community, on other businesses those people start, and also your own business. Um, yeah, it's kind of eye-opening to think of it
It
that way.
It really is. And it is like it's the ultimate win-win-win scenario. Like each of our businesses as we're growing need great leaders to run those businesses. We're all human capital businesses. So you need great leaders from a business perspective. But it's the ultimate value prop to employees to be like, "Hey, yes, come here, get a paycheck, have a decent place to work." And if you're looking to grow your career, we've got openings for that. And this can be a place where you can make more money, learn more leadership skills. The amount of people that are executives at companies that spent their early formative years learning leadership inside restaurants, inside hospitality brands is huge. And so that's a value prop to your employees where we all win. The business gets better because we've got more leaders. The environment for employees gets better because it's a place where you can be invested in and you can learn new skills and you can grow beyond just showing up and getting your paycheck every day. So it's a win-win for everybody when you do it that way.
Win, win, win. I love it.
Win-win-win. Speaking of
Uh,
win-win-win,
oh, well, I was saying, I did a restaurant spotlight on Denny's. Today we have a different kind of spotlight. Not a restaurant spotlight. I would call it maybe a culture spotlight.
Culture
I don't know.
spotlight.
You tell me. But Sam has a unique and different spotlight for us today.
Well, and I think we want to do a few of these, few different types of these. One is restaurants. This is a culture spotlight that kind of gets at what we're talking about and what a lot of us experience, which is transformation. How do you take a not great environment and transform it into something great? And the premier example is happening right now in the sports world. For those of us into the sports world, I am an IU, Indiana University alumnus. For those that don't know, Indiana has had 100 years of being terrible at the sport of football. Terrible. Not even on the radar. Not anymore. Ranked number 1 in the country right now. Just won the Big Ten championship. And so the culture spotlight, if this works, this may not work, in which case I'll just keep talking about it, is all about the Indiana Hoosiers and their coach who transformed the culture from 100 years of desolation into a brand now that is the number 1 football program in the country. So here we go. Let's see how well this works. Let me know if you can hear this.
Ted Lasso moment.
I've been a fan for 29 years and about IU football.
These tailgate lots, from what they were last year to this year, completely different vibe.
It's definitely a good change of culture considering our history in basketball and not football.
Everyone is here, like we're waiting outside of lines an hour before the game, you know? Never thought I'd see the day.
IU footballs, it's been interesting because it's got a sort of an up and down history. We thought we've had it figured out. Something would happen and we just couldn't consistently keep the good things happening.
And the ball got fumbled out there. Just hasn't been pretty in any way, shape, or form today. Clock continues to run. And this football game mercifully ends.
We took a deep dive into our football program and looked at the history. And honestly, when we started going through the interview process, it was like Coach Sig had seen our list beforehand, and our blueprint was his blueprint.
Receiver, touchdown, Reggie Brown. That's Kurt Cignetti, who's done such a terrific job here.
We loved JMU. I figured I'd retire there. But, and Indiana made a change on a Sunday afternoon, and that evening I got a call from Scott Dolson. They wanted to change the trajectory of the program, and we're committed.
This is an exciting opportunity at a prestigious university in the top football conference in the country.
You know, I felt like I had done this turnaround 2 or 3 other times. This was just a bigger stage. Felt really optimistic about what might lie ahead, and thought it'd be a nice challenge.
Hey Kurt, Todd Goldman with CNHI Indiana. When you recruit them, you know, how do you sell your vision of your culture?
What do you mean? I don't get the question.
I had been asked that question quite a few times, and it was at the end of the press conference, so I kept it simple in as few words as possible, and I put my head down, and you know what I said.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
When I first saw the Google Me video on Twitter, I did laugh at first. I know how Cignetti is, you know, you got that swagger now. So he's going to talk the talk, and we going to walk the walk for him. It's like the fans love it, so like, I'm riding for it.
I just detected right away gloom and doom around the program. And I'd come from, look, I'd been winning quite a bit. You know, we had 5 championships in 5 years, and all of a sudden, you know, I got people telling me that this is an impossible situation, and I wasn't going to have any of it.
Roll out the big red carpet, touchdown Indiana. And B-Town is bubbling over. This is the new Indiana. After a long lull, Memorial Stadium alive again.
There's a lot of things we're trying to change here, and another thing we're trying to change, a tradition. We got to keep the people in the seats after halftime.
Messaging is important. Bottom line is this: you have to change the way people think, inside and outside your program. I had to get people excited, and I went out on a limb a little bit.
When I read the letter, I was like, hey, we need you guys here because we're doing something special here in Memorial Stadium, and we want you to be a part of it because it's not just about the football team, but it's about the whole university and the whole atmosphere who's been a part of this whole business for so long.
I thought it was great. There were students who I ran into at the game who said, I wasn't going to come to this game, but there's no way I was going to let Coach Sig down.
We're very thrilled about the culture that he's brought into the program.
The amount of confidence that man has is amazing.
If you watch him on the sideline, he just walks back and forth like he's pacing. He's on a mission.
Clearly, he's won, right? He wins everywhere he goes. Now he's coming here to win, and it's going to the college football playoff with him.
We've been waiting for this a long time.
I mean, why have we turned all these places around so quickly, and this one in particular? I was born in the game.
Coach Sig is a winning man. He puts the hard work in, you know. Ever since day one, he never switched the motive. So I say he got a great motive and a high standard on us, and it shows, and he's a great coach.
He knows when to be excited. He knows when to be serious. He knows when to, get on you. He knows when to love you up and to coach you. And ultimately, he wants to win.
Success is a choice. If you have a plan and you got a blueprint and you work it daily and you're committed and you're disciplined and focused, anyone can achieve anything in life.
Okay. Coach Sig.
Coach Sig. Wow.
Hopefully you got to hear that. Otherwise, I just watched 5 minutes of a video and you all just stared at me doing it.
Yeah, we can hear it. We can hear it.
Good. First of all, I loved his Google me quote. Like that thing was the first time it went viral a little bit. And his thing is like, I win, just Google me. He's got a little bit of a swagger to him, but the thing that he's done more than anything, and the reason why I wanted to highlight this is we go into restaurants all the time that are kind of a mess. They're not in the best shape. And we put a new leader in, we try to get a new GM in, we try to bring it back to life. And it takes culture to bring things to life. What I think Coach Sig did was he had an idea of what to do. Most leaders, when they go into a restaurant, have an idea of what success looks like. He didn't just focus on the standards or implementing the standards. He said, even in the video, he had to change people's minds. He had to literally get students to come into the stadium. I was one of those students that I never went to a football game. I went to the first one, my first game freshman year, and I was one of 50 people in the stands. There were more players on the field than in the stands. And I was like, yeah, I'm out of here. This is not worth going to. He had to convince this organization, not just to win. They were already winning, but we need to rally around this and create this experience. So it was more about changing people's mindsets than the actual tactical steps of what happened. And then he did something else that was interesting. And Matt, I would love your reaction to this because we've seen this a ton. What's not in the video is, in order to do this, he didn't go alone. It wasn't just him coming in. He brought an entire coaching staff that knew his way and knew his system. And he brought players with him that knew his system and knew his approach. And I thought about this because I was in restaurants last week where we are struggling to see, we've got a struggling restaurant and we send in one GM to try to fix that place. And there's 30 employees and that one GM has to fix it. And it's an impossible task. And you and I have seen this all over the place. That GM is trying to set the culture, but they're fighting an uphill battle and they're going it alone. I think the thing that Coach Sig actually did was he knew what he wanted to do, and he brought an entire system with him and a support system that included people to pull it off. It wasn't just him. And when you talk about implementing culture and scaling culture or even changing culture, you can't do it alone. You can't just be one person shouting from the mountaintops. It takes a system and help and support. I feel like we've seen that over and over again in our years in the restaurant industry when it comes to culture.
Yeah. I mean, bringing in more than just the one leader, like that feels like such a clear, intuitive thing to do, where we're like, oh, bring in a new general manager and that'll fix it, right? That'll change it. But really, yeah, it takes that team. Like times when we've seen a new manager come in with a couple of key leaders, or even a team member, that's sort of someone that at least they've installed or they've brought in with them.
Yep.
Is a kind of a game changer. I've also seen it on the corporate level. We've seen that multiple times. And it's one of those things that's like a difficult pill to swallow when like a new CEO comes in and slashes. But it's such a common thing now. I mean, we've seen it. I saw it at Chipotle. The Chipotle CEO who did that Chipotle just went to Starbucks, did the same thing at Starbucks, let go of a lot of people, brought in his own people in order to be like, hey, this is because you can't just be like, hey, here's a new culture, we're gonna create it. It's like, hey, let's just bring in the people that already get this culture that I'm trying to create, and it will be off and running on almost on day one, with a new team that already gets it.
I
Yeah,
think that's right. And it's
huge.
tough. Like it's a tough world, but changing culture is a very hard thing to do.
Yeah,
Because you're like Coach Sig said in the video, you're trying to change mindsets of
yeah,
people. And it is hard when you're one person trying to change everyone else's mind. It's easier when you've got a few people trying to change a few other people's minds about what's possible. So I thought it was just his approach has been fascinating to watch how he did it and how quickly he turned around a historically terrible program. And now he's done this same playbook over and over again, just at bigger scales. But he's repeated the same idea. I'm going to bring the same people with me that have been with me for 20 years,
yeah,
because they get the message, they understand what we're doing. But now he's at this pivot point, and this is going to segue into what we're talking about today, which is he's now shifted the culture. He now needs to maintain it. And to
yeah,
maintain it, he's now shifting to, I can't just change everything. I need to now develop people from within that believe what I believe. Now that my culture is in place, I need, like, his quarterback just won the Heisman Trophy, first ever Heisman Trophy winner in the history of Indiana University.
wow,
That kid's graduating. He's gone to
yeah,
the NFL next year. So your leader is now gone. He needs another leader to come in and step up and become the quarterback of the team. And it's interesting in sports, especially in college, every 4 years, he's turning over the entire staff. And so he's got to constantly be in this, how do I continually retrain people or develop leaders from within that believe in my system? That'll be the ultimate barometer of his success, is can he systematize people that now live and breathe his world over time. That's the name of the game for him. And honestly, for most of us, we're not CEOs coming in and changing restaurants. We're trying to build culture, scale culture, maintain culture. And for a lot of us, it comes down to developing leaders from within at scale.
yeah. Well, even though that's a perfect segue, I'm going to say, well, I want to throw in one more thing
Love it.
from that video. Something I loved was in that interview, I forget his name, but the young man that was being interviewed, the player, he said at some point, he said, he's talking about Coach Sig, and he goes, he wins. Coach Sig wins. And I'm like, to me, as somebody who we've done a lot of work in like using messaging to build culture, like using storytelling, using recognition, everything from like helping values come alive to kind of operationalizing values in an organization. When I hear someone within the organization, and I hate using words like organization because that sounds so corporate, but you get it. Like when I
Get
hear,
it? I get it.
when I hear somebody from within repeat back the language that
Yes.
we've been putting out there over and over, that's when I'm like, oh, now that's it. It's a part of it. It's other people are saying the stuff that like kind of we've been saying. And even if that was on purpose or not, like he kind of parroted back the thing that he heard the coach say of just like, I win. Google me. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And now he's got other people saying it, even though that wasn't necessarily on purpose. You know what I mean? Like even if Coach Sig wasn't trying to make that like the mantra or anything, like that's what people are saying now because he was the one saying it and putting it out there. And so it's like there becomes sort of this shift where people start to own that language and like using that vernacular and using the language of the organization of what the culture is like. And when other people start to like use that language, that's when you know it's just like it's there, it's part of it, it's ingrained, and it kind of has that ability to live on and be passed on to the next class or the next hires or the incoming people or whatever that might be. Like when you kind of hear people saying it back is kind of this like aha moment.
Yeah, you know they got it. It's and especially like it's different when it's your like the people you brought in or your ringers that you brought in when they say it, it's one thing, but when it's like somebody who wasn't there when this thing all started and they're repeating the messages, I feel like that's when you know it's actually stuck. It's like it's become a reality now and it's trickled down into the organization and become a part of who we are. it's a great feeling when you hear that message get out there a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I know last week we introduced this idea of, the 80% club and sort of this like sweet spot of where we feel like in our experience it makes the most sense to live. I showed my crude paper up, but an improved version of
New and
that.
improved. We keep, and then when we get back from the new year, this thing is going to be, I can't imagine how it evolves from there.
Oh.
But it is, I mean, it's an interesting conversation, and it's brought up from when we talked about it last week. I've had side conversations, and you and I have kept talking about it, and we want to elaborate on it and talk then about, well, what are the specific things within the system? But the topics that have come up are like, there are risks when you promote from within, and if you promote from within, but you're promoting bad people, poor people, you're promoting a problem. Or if you're over promoting and only like, there are things in it where it's not all sunshine and rainbows, and you've got to watch out. So it's not just promoting from within, but you got to do it well. And so I think that's part of what we want to elaborate on today is like, well, how do you think about it? How do you get there? How do you know where you're at? And then how do you do it well and avoid some of these pitfalls that we've seen brands fall into?
Yeah.
So let me pop this up there. Let's see how this goes. And let me try to spotlight it.
I got you.
Let me,
I don't.
I got it. There we go. First, let's address the elephant in the room that it says rest in peace up at the top. I went with an acronym. I'm curious, the people that are in there, as I talk about this, if you've got a metric that you're using internally that says the same thing, I would love to know what that metric is. Like, how do you think of it? This is how we think of it, which is RIP here. What we're talking about, the 80% club, promoting people from within. The North Star here is we're trying to promote 80% of our leaders from within. The brands that do that have an engine of people growing from within. And so that metric, the 80%, is the RIP. It is the internal rate of promotion. And so rate of internal promotion is the acronym that we're using to measure, well, how good are we at developing talent from within? So if you're on the Zoom and you've got a metric where you're measuring internal talent development, I would love to see what you're measuring or what you call it or what your acronym is. But for now, we're going RIP. We're going to go with your RIP here to figure out what it is. And like we said, the goal is 80%. Matt, last week when we started this, I'm going to go left to right here, and we'll just break this guy down. We started by talking about how like you kind of just fall into 20%. And really what I think of it as, and what I think you think of it as, and we've seen a lot, is like, these are like battlefield promotions. Like, someone's got to get promoted because we're growing, or somebody quits, or something happens. And so even if you do nothing, if you're not focused on your RIP or internal promotion rates, people are going to get promoted no matter what. And so it's not like nothing will happen, but you can get to about a 20% RIP just through battlefield promotions, just by things happening organically. People are going to get promoted inside of the system. So without even focusing on it, most brands can likely stumble into somewhere around 10 to 20%. That feels right based on what we're seeing, right? So you then have, I'm going to keep going.
Yeah. So I turned off. I don't see you.
Oh, you don't see, you see my screen?
I just see your screen, so I didn't know if you were off. But yeah.
Oh, good. So like
Battlefield promotion.
Yeah, talking about battlefield promotions, but that feels right? Like most brands can trip into that 20% battlefield promotions.
Yeah, absolutely. Out of necessity, out of like, hey, sometimes it's like, hey, we need a warm body.
That's right. That's exactly right. So then you get into this middle tier, which is like on your way to 80. I split it into two buckets, which is like that 50% mark. Because I think as a system, you're trying to get to like, are more than half of the leaders being promoted from within, or are less than half? Until you get to halfway, you're kind of selling the dream. Like, you're building this system, but you're selling people kind of up here on, yeah, this is the dream. This is what we want to do, is promote people from within. You're selling people on it. And where you fall short and where brands stall out here is when the dream doesn't become the reality. You're selling them on internal promotions, but realistically, you're still promoting people from the outside more than you're promoting people from within. And so That's the pitfall to fall into there, where you're selling people on the dream. It's like, hey, we're going to promote people from within. We're going to invest in you internally. We're going to build a system to do it. Where it falls short sometimes is employees look at it and go, yeah, you've been promising me that forever. And still all I see when we open a new restaurant or when I look around is we're hiring managers from the outside or GMs from the outside. So that's the hurdle you've got to overcome, is that perception of people coming from the outside. You'll get over that perception, though, when over half of the people, over half of your leaders are being promoted from within. Because then you get that tipping point where now you can reinforce the system. You've got enough people to point to say, we do promote people from within. Here's all the use cases. Here are all of the things that, all the proof cases that we have to show that we're promoting leaders from within. We've got examples to show. And in there, you're just trying to continue reinforcing that system to get to 80%. But this is one where we've seen the bad side of this happen, where leaders get propped up in this system. If you're creating a world where you want to promote leaders from within, the negative side to this, or the other side, is leaders recognize that, hey, we want to promote people from within, but the leaders are propped up. They're not actually good leaders. We're just promoting them because we want to promote people from within. So we're promoting bad talent, or we're promoting people that aren't effective in their role. And so that's the watch out there, is can we actually promote people from within that are good to get to that 80% mark, which is where you get to this red sweet spot of the 80% club, which is 80% of your leaders promoted from within. I'll end it here, which is the downside, which is this last world. If you're only promoting from within and you get to that 100% of people promoted from within, you get to this idea. It's kind of like inbred leadership, or inbred ideation here, where you're not getting any new ideas from the outside. Every idea is coming from inside of your organization, because all of your leaders are coming from inside of your organization. That's also a risk. So we're not advocating here for 100% of leaders being promoted from within. It's very much like there's a sweet spot of 80 to 90, but you run the risk of having too many leaders promoted from within. But that is the 80% club, with a lot of variation mixed in there.
Nice. I like this idea of the dream does not equal reality. You know, if you're in between that 20 to 50, like, you're clearly being intentional, you're working towards the dream, but it's like there's something missing in order to get from the 50 to the 80. And typically what that is a system. A clearly defined system, I would say, right? Or at least not like a dialed in. People might have the system in place at 20, or working towards that dream, but what brings it to life is a clearly defined path, a clearly defined system in order to make that happen.
That's exactly right. Yeah, because otherwise you're kind of just making things up, or you're hoping to get leaders from within. If you don't have a system, you're kind of just praying that leaders get spun out, or you have people in your system that are magically good at developing leaders. But you're just praying if there's no system in order to bring that to life. So the whole goal is, we've got it there, is how do you build the system? Yeah. That's the key to getting across that 50% line, because once it's built, then you're just reinforcing it. But you got to build it first. Otherwise, it's just battlefield. You're just praying out there. So building the system, you're exactly right, is the linchpin to make it a reality.
Yeah, and the brands that, I don't know, the brands that do it best also kind of make it look effortless. I feel like they make it more, they make it feel more about people wanting to be there and the feeling of the culture, but it's always very intentional. I guess
super intentional.
Yeah. Like it feels like it's just oh, we have this really great culture, and we promote from within, and people love it here, and people are lifers. But under the hood, there's a lot going on. I guess is the, for lack of a better way to say it. Yeah, every time.
That's exactly right. And so it starts, I think what what we want to do now is kind of break down, well, what are the components of the system? So if you're going to build the system, what are the components of it? And so that's what we've spent 20 years trying to figure out, is like, what are the things that everybody's doing as we look around at other brands, who's doing what? And like, if you have all these components dialed in and in place, you're generally in a good position, a good idea. I think we've got it 9. It's I feel like every 90 days it changes or fluctuates as we learn new things from new brands or see what's out there. So we've got a version now of like, there are nine pieces of the employee journey that need to be in place for this system to be working well, is kind of where we're at right now, that we want to talk through here.
Let's do it. The training simplified system.
The training simplified system. We're going to build it as we go here. So I'm not going to spotlight. I'll keep you up on the screen with me as we do this, but my picture in picture not working today. No pip. So you've got the first one here, which is it all starts with, and I'm going in chronological order here, of the employee experience, which is all about your hiring. Who you bring into the company starts to dictate who you train and develop. If you're going to develop leaders from within, you've got to hire the right people. Because if you hire the wrong people, you don't want to develop those people into leaders. And so I know we've got Tony on the call, who's a recruiter and lives in this world every day. If you can't hire people that will be future leaders, then you're kind of out of luck, because you're kind of developing bad raw material. You're not working with the right stuff. So you want to hire people that believe what you believe, so that when they get there, you then get into that orientation. And I feel like providing that great orientation is like, we've talked about it in other segments here, but it's like reinforcing that you made the right decision, that these are the values we're looking for. You were hired for those values, and you're now you've made the right decision. And this is what success looks like here. Matt, you've built like 1,000 orientations of like what makes it good, and talk through different leaders around what makes orientation solid versus not solid. There are a few things you want to talk through that just highlight like what is good when it comes to orientation when you get in there.
Yeah, I mean, and we've talked about it here. But I think if it's like singing the same song as like what you're going to hear in like when we talk through like three, 3 and beyond here on this system, hearing the same thing, reinforcing the same thing. So it's still on day one, just this idea of like being able for them to answer the question, did I make the right decision? Am I in the right spot? And that means telling people who you are, what you believe, kind of what's in it for them, for this new hire, and what the expectations are, what people can expect from working here, from leadership, and also what we expect from you. And on day one, if you can kind of answer those questions, I think that's a solid kind of day one orientation. But we know that that orientation is not just day one. It's really kind of this like ongoing training process, really of like your onboarding of getting training, getting validated, being up to speed and confident in your position. But it also requires some like specific tools. And we found, that there's the digital tools of like videos. There's also like physical tools that we use to get people to take away. But most importantly, like, tools for the leader, to really deliver a great orientation, something to facilitate that. Because the worst kind of orientation is just like, go watch a video and, check back in with me in an hour. But we found that when we give managers tools to do a really great orientation, those are the ones that stick, that are effective, that make people feel welcome and kind of a part of the culture. Yeah,
that's right. And you got other brands that just like there's almost an overinvestment in orientation, where it's like, you can really blow up orientation to be this massive experience. There's the no version, which is like, hey, there's your trainer, get to work. There's the light version, which is like, at least have some sort of an orientation. But then there are brands that just blow up orientation into something absolutely massive, with videos and experiences and tools and materials, like the best of the best. Really invest in that day one experience to really reinforce what that looks like. All right. We then get into the next step, which is, I'm just going to say SOPs to save us all from looking at my handwriting. But it's like, it's the standards and the procedures of how do we run this thing? Like, what does good look like across the board? And this is whether you're a hotel brand or a restaurant brand or an oil change place. Like, what are the standards? And I think as we get in here, like, this could be as simple as recipes, it could be as simple as maintenance procedures. But what we've found is the brands that do their SOPs really well, they take the time to make sure that it's complete. Like, a lot of what we end up seeing as we dig in with recipes or standards or procedures in any world. And we talked about this maybe last week or the week before, with like getting into the details and making sure you are, when you say greet the guest, what do you mean? Because greet the guest means a million different things to a million people. All of your SOPs need to be as detailed as your 20-step process to greet the guest.
And yeah, and you talked about it with Steve too, just like dialing in the details on like a recipe and being clear and consistent across the board. Um, yeah, I mean, this is the kind of thing that it's just so funny because I feel like we've worked with like brands that have like 3 restaurants, and they have this probably maybe better than some brands that have like, I don't know, 1,000, because once you get to this huge numbers, it's like everyone's kind of doing their own thing, and sometimes it's harder to standardize and get everybody on the same page, because it's harder to manage. But yeah, just having like your basic standardized um, procedures and what to do, when to do it, who's responsible for what. Um, it's kind of table stakes for this, but it's essential for having a system that, if we bring it back to the RIP, for having a system that people can grow into, that they feel like they can own it, because then this manager could like go to another location, could go open up store number 12 for you, and they have what they need. I think that's bringing it back to like the internal rate of internal promotion idea. It allows people to replicate themselves, right?
That's
And
exactly right.
we have standards, and we have written standards in place, and we have tools for the standards.
Because without it, you're promoting people hoping they just remember everything. And so the idea of the SOPs is like, no, promote them, but arm them with the tools and the clear expectations so that it's not just reliant on them remembering everything.
Yeah.
Increases the likelihood they'll succeed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's when it, and we use this phrase all the time, but that's what makes it not just be tribal knowledge in your organization. Because so many of like the small brands like exist on tribal knowledge. When they send a manager to a new location, it's like, oh well, he learned it from me, and then he taught so and so, and so they all know how to do it. But no, they don't know how to do it unless it's written down and it's documented and it's clear.
That's exactly right. So number 4 then, and again, some of these we've talked about in previous, we're going to evolve past what we've talked about. So we got some new stuff coming up here, but these are the basics, and you can't really develop leaders unless these things are in place. So in the restaurant world, we call it station training. In a lot of frontline workforces, you call it station training. But once you've got SOPs, there's then, well, how do we teach people all of the SOPs inside of the restaurant? And so one way to do it would be like, here's a book, and here's a list of 400 things you need to learn. What we advocate for instead, and what the best brands do, is break it down and say, okay, of the 400 expectations, we're going to break that down into 4 or 5 stations. And each station has 40 or 50 things that you need to do in it. So I'm going to train you in that station. And then when you're done with that station, I'm going to train you in this station. And in this, we're now ensuring that we didn't miss anything. Really easy to miss a couple things when you're looking at a list of 400 items you need to learn. If you miss 5, you might not notice. But when you break it down into the stations, the whole goal is to say, before you become a leader, I need to know you can run each of the stations inside of the building such that you can teach and train somebody else. If you can't do that, then you can't be an effective leader inside of my organization. So once you have the SOPs, it's now turning the SOPs into station training, to make it easier to track, manage, and ensure that the people running those stations are trained and know exactly what to do to meet those SOPs.
And I feel like so much a part of station training is it takes the SOPs, then it says like, that's kind of the what, right? And station training is almost like the who, like who's responsible for these things, and making sure that you know like what each station is accountable for in the system.
That's exactly right. So there's a layer here in our world. We work primarily in the hospitality industry. And so station training is one bit, but I think in our world, there's always a nuance of not just doing your job, but how do we create those hospitality standards across the brand? So not just how do you make the food, not just how do you clean the floor or grill the chicken, but how do we create a guest experience that's so good that guests keep coming back? And this is, again, universal. If it's restaurants or grocery stores or oil change places, there's the stations of how do you do your job augmented with this idea of hospitality standards. How do we create such a great guest experience that people keep coming back? It's a whole different layer to make sure that you're thinking through each element of the guest experience and how do you bring it to life and augment it. The best brands in the world have a specific focus just on that, aside from product related training and SOPs.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to keep going here. We've touched on this one lightly, but not too much, which is, depending on what your brand calls it, you've got a world where people need to know how to teach and train each other. So you've got all these systems in place. If you start zooming out, you've got hiring, orientation, SOPs, station training, and hospitality standards. All of these standards have been written down and codified. Somehow, though, the teams inside of the restaurant need to know how to teach and how to train and how to use all of those tools. And so some places have a certified trainer program, some have a train the trainer program, but all of these are things that teach the folks inside the restaurants, how do you actually teach? How do you actually use the stuff that's been created inside of the restaurant to bring it to life? Otherwise, they're just tools. They're just things that live there. The certified trainer ensures that we're actually teaching and training effectively. And there's a whole system and a whole world and plan around teaching. Because when we are teachers, that's core to creating leaders from within. Every great brand that has leaders being developed from within, they're brands that are great at teaching and training. And so this element of train the trainer or certified trainer or whatever you call it is critical to that. It's a critical skill to develop, to not just teach the standards, but teach people how to teach the standards.
Yeah, and like you said, it's different. Like I feel like sometimes it becomes, as a brand grows, it goes from being a certified trainer to what we see is like having like certified training like centers, certified training restaurants, certified training regions, and that so it looks differently based on where you are in the spectrum, right, of like growth and like location count, and it evolves with you. But even if you're going, if you're literally going from 1 to 2 locations, you have to have some sort of train the trainer. Like, hey, someone besides me, the restaurant founder or owner, at some point needs to train somebody else, and I want them to know how to do it. That's like the very base level rudimentary version. And then it's about becoming certified, like certifying individuals, certifying entire restaurants, certifying a region. Yeah, there's it evolves and changes, but it has to exist at some level, even at the very beginning.
That's right. And it's the skill of teaching, and which is like a skill that I think people either think we have naturally or you don't have it. But the skill of how to teach, how to train, how to convey information and actually develop people is a very tactical skill that anybody can learn. And so the brands that have really done this well invest heavily in how do you teach, not just having the tools, but the actual science of how people learn and how people develop skills over time.
That's right.
All right. So now we get into some of the interesting stuff that we haven't spent a lot of time talking about here. Number 7 on the list that changes every 90 days. Number 7 is, at this point, you can be an individual contributor in a brand, and do all the things we talked about. You can help hire people, give orientations, teach SOPs, do station training, hospitality standards, train the trainer. You don't necessarily need to be a leader to do any of those things. But in order to grow leaders from within, there's a new designation here when somebody is actually in charge of leading the shift. It's that next evolution or the next layer of leadership that comes in. before you get to general manager, before we say, hey, the whole store is yours and you're accountable for everything, there's this microcosm that's like, hey, you're in charge of running this building while the GM's not there or while a senior leader isn't there. You're not running the whole thing, but you are the senior most person in charge. And with that comes some weight and some expectations that, like, you need to know how to lead people effectively through a shift. You need to know how to manage the flow of a restaurant. And there's these emergency preparedness things that we often overlook to say, hey, if you're going to be alone in the restaurant, you have to know what to do if a health inspector comes in, or if a fire breaks out, or if a fight breaks out inside the restaurant. There are these rare things that you are going to be the most senior person on a shift. So we need to equip you with the skills to run the building when no one else is there, to be able to survive that shift and get through it. And ideally, run a great shift, lead a really good shift. So you've got to both not do the bad and illegal things, but also create an environment where we get great results and have a great shift that employees love. And that skill is the next skill in the evolution of developing leaders from within.
I remember specifically when we were developing, like, we didn't call it shift leader, but, hourly manager training at Chipotle. And there was sort of this question of like, well, what do they need to know? What, when we were figuring out like, what does this person need to know in order to do their job? And it kind of just, the answer just ended up being like, everything. They need to know everything that a GM knows. And like, really the main difference is like the actual leadership part. You know what I mean? Like owning the business. They need to technically kind of just know everything. Like maybe they're not responsible for food ordering, but what if something happens and they have to somehow get food. They have to know what to do. So technically the shift leader has to know everything operationally that a general manager knows to do. Um,
Which
yeah.
is terrifying when you think of, like, the analogy we always use is like, think of the shift that you're most concerned about over a week inside of your restaurant. And for a lot of brands, it might be like the Sunday night crew, because a lot of senior leaders aren't working weekends and your managers are trying to take off. So your Sunday night crew is the one that you're worried about the most. The shift leader on that shift is the one that we're targeting to say, how do we ensure that that shift goes great? So you're not worried about it, so that it becomes one of your better shifts. But that's the one to worry about, is how do you equip them? Because anything could happen on that Sunday night shift when no one else is around. How do you equip them to handle whatever happens along the way?
Yeah.
All right. So we'll keep going down the progression here, because I think the zoomed out view is what matters most here. Once you become a shift leader, you then evolve into this world where it's all GM skills. And in the general manager world here, you're doing all the things a shift leader does, like we just said, but now you're running a business. And the thing that trips up a lot of GMs, we see, I think there's this polarizing view of general managers where you have some that are great with numbers and they get the P&L and the operations, but those are not often your best people leaders. And you have others that are amazing people leaders. They can connect and empathize and teach and develop, but they may not be great with numbers and knowing the P&L. And the best leaders, the best GMs, have to be able to do both. You're running a business, so there's certainly P&L and financial components to your job, but you also have to be able to teach and develop and inspire humans along the way. And the combination of those two things creates this world where we need to set those expectations, but then teach our general managers how to do both of those things really well.
That's right.
And that, I don't know, what, from your perspective, Matt, what do you think it is that causes that like split of like the people versus numbers? Because that's a hard code to crack for brands of how do you do both really well?
I know, and everybody wants the like unicorn GM that can do both, right? That's hard to find. I mean, that's why it's like I think that you have to teach it, you have to develop it. Like you can't just expect somebody to kind of be that unicorn that can do both. Um, Tony's always looking for those unicorns. That's sort of like, and I mean that, and honestly though, that is like such an interesting case for like using a lot of these like personality tests, stuff like that, because you can kind of predict from those sometimes. Like if you're like using the Myers-Briggs and you're like, oh, I knew a leader who was like, we're only gonna hire high I's, high D's. You know what I mean? People who are like 50-50 IDs, if you know the if you know that reference.
Yep.
Because those are people who will both be kind of like hard charging, get the work done, and they're operational, but they're also like, outgoing and they know that. Um, and yeah, it's hard to find, but you have to also develop it. And I think that there's also having just this clear, like a manager program that teaches the numbers, that teaches people how to run a business. Um, I is probably easier to do than to get somebody to be, like, inspirational or personable who's not inspirational or personable.
That's right.
But that's just my take.
It's hard either way. It takes focus and dedication. Emily put it in there. I think Emily, what you just said is, I think, exactly what most restaurants have historically struggled with, which is folks that grow up in the front of house are great with people. Folks that grow up in the back of house are generally great with numbers and operations, because back of house is like it's process, it's speed, it's execution, it's inventory management. It is very much numbers focused and process focused. Front of house, you're dealing with guests and issues, and there's a lot of empathy that needs to happen out there. A lot of places you go into are missing that empathy in the back of the house. It's just not there. And so the question is, how does it converge? At what point do the front of house leaders need to learn the back of the house skills or that side of the business? And same thing with the back of the house. We've seen brands where that crossover happens. And you might need to augment your skills. You might not be great at the other side. You can be pretty good, but then you surround yourself with a leadership team that highlights your strengths or opportunities. But I think you can't be only good at one or only good at the other when you get to this world, to that GM world. You've got to be able to have at least some skill set on both sides of the aisle there.
That's right. I mean, it's a necessity. That's what
100%.
makes somebody who's a shift leader become a GM.
That's exactly,
Ultimately,
yeah, 100%.
is the ability to do that, and hopefully people at that shift leader level are being developed into that place. Yeah.
All right, last one, and then we can look at this zoomed out system, and I know we're coming up on time. So last one here is, after the GM world, it's this world of employee conferences. And on the surface, it seems very tactical to say employee conferences, but the idea behind an employee conference is to take these leaders that you grew from within, that learned your standards and became your trainer, that then became your shift leader, that then became your GM. And this employee conference is how you retain those folks over time, how you re-engage them, reignite that passion, reinvest back into them so they stay with the brand and they continue evangelizing the brand inside of their stores. To us, employee conferences are not, and the brands that do this well, they're not tactical updates. They're not here's the 12-point plan of what's happening next. The best brands in the world, when it comes to those conferences, use it as a chance to reignite those leaders that you've developed from within and celebrate them and put them on display and reward them for all of the effort. And that's what keeps them in the mix to retain those folks over time. Matt, you live this world. You've seen more conferences probably than anybody on the planet when it comes to restaurant conferences. Like, what are the differences there and how do you do that well?
Yeah, I've seen a couple recently that did it really, really well. And I think that there are, like, I mean, we don't have time to get into like the whole thing
Yep.
today, but there's some like metrics, I think, some like key things that like make an employee conference really, really great. And one of those, you mentioned it, is recognition, like just like next level recognition. Having something, I mean, at Chipotle, we had an award ceremony called the Adobo Awards. Then that became like the heart of the conference. And I've seen other brands do the same thing, where like that recognition piece, and not just recognition, but focused recognition, meaning like we're recognizing people for these clear metrics, we're recognizing people for these clear things that we're wanting to reinforce, and just going like all in on recognition at these conferences, I think is huge. But also another thing is like inspirational leadership, like inspiring with a vision, right? Um, again, I was at one recently where I heard the CEO got up and said, by 2030, we're going to be a $1 billion brand that's accessible to people and rooted in our heritage. And it's like, and it was like memorable because it was like, it was inspiring because there was like there was a metric, there was like some heart to it. And so like inspirational leadership and focused recognition of people, I think are kind of the two things that that you can do at a conference that you just can't really achieve over a virtual town hall, um, and really just like gets people to like kind of buy in and believe in what's going on there and really kind of feel it, and leads to that not just retention, but also that desire to be promoted. Because people look at those conference moments, people look at those recognition pieces and say, "Oh, I want that," or I want to take this back to my team, and my team wants that. My team wants to win the like Restaurant of the Year award next year. And it just adds that culture of like internal growth and being a part of something that you believe in.
I think it's great, and it's like the capstone on everything. And I think what we've been breaking down is like as we zoom out now and we kind of like, all right, let's look at everything here, which got a little long there. But like I think these are the things. But when we're looking at how do you create a system that develops 80% of people from within, you've got to start by building this system and then reinforcing the system. And that's what gets you to the 80% club. And the brands that we've seen get there and the brands that we've seen do it well do these 9 things really well. And they don't skip any of them. Most brands have some of these things. Most brands probably have a version of all of them. The best brands really invest in these and do them in such a way that they're the envy of the industry. They focus intently on hiring people that believe what they believe. They give a great orientation that reinforces you made the right decision and gives a clear path for growth. They've got super clear SOPs that are very detailed with exactly what we're looking for. They've got clearly defined station training to break down all of those SOPs across the restaurant. They have clearly defined hospitality standards of how do we not just execute the product, but how do we create a guest experience that keep guests coming back again and again. They've got a system for teaching people how to teach all of those standards that we just talked about. They've got a dedicated path then for shift leaders of how do you run a shift as a shift leader when you're the only one in the restaurant, and giving people clear expectations and time to learn that skill before you then become that general manager where you're balancing both the operational numbers and P&L side with your people leadership and human leadership side. That then culminates in these employee conferences that reignite and re-engage employees year over year. And when you look at all of that happens on an annual basis, so that every single year you're doing all 9 of those things for your workforce. That's the system. That's the thing that creates leaders being built from within and staying with your brand to get to that 80% mark. But you got to do all 9 of those really well and really consistently.
The thing that I love is that, and this is what we've done over and over again, and this is not a commercial, it's just says what we've done, like going into an organization and like you can audit it. So if you know, like, hey, here's 9 things that we think help a brand really develop a talent pipeline in order to grow and to be a part of this 80% club. Here's the benchmarks, here's the things that you need. Then you can dial in each one. And each one of those we could spend a whole week talking about each one and going in and saying, here's all the metrics for each one. Here's what it looks like to make it come to life. Then we can audit it and then grade the strength of it, to know how well we're tracking towards being part of that 80% club.
That's right. Because it is like when you get to growing, you're not then challenging individuals or trying to develop individuals. You're developing a system. And when something's broken, you're looking at the system and looking at the metrics like you're talking about. And it's how do we fix the system? Because the system is what yields leaders. It's not individuals and it's not individual broken things. So if you see something wrong, you got to fix the system.
Well, we've never gone over on time until the final episode of the year. We're about to cross to 11:01 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. But we're going to pick this up again next year. thank you everybody for joining in on LinkedIn, on Zoom, maybe Instagram. I don't know. I didn't check. But yeah, happy New Year, happy holidays, and yeah, we're gonna pick this up again next year, and we're stoked to keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. Have a great holiday, Matt. Have a great New Year.